Okay, there we go. Thank you. Sorry, sorry about that, everybody. And I think I can be mute. I can be co-host in the future, so I can. Yeah, we'll sort it out. But yeah, welcome. I think we're just going to start off and get us going. We've got a lot of interesting content today, and also we've got a lot of amazing recommendations in the chat already for anybody who's joining if they want browser extensions for productivity or for whatever. So make sure to check it out, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Cool. So today we're going to do a presentation. We're joined by Room 40 Ventures, who is a crypto investment firm that's big in the Mina ecosystem, and they're here to talk about what makes a project investable. And that chat will be led by our ecosystem BD director, Dylan. Then we're going to talk about week 3 updates and information, and then we'll finish the presentation by talking through
eventually sell for 1.26 million and all done. It's good.
Thank you. And if everyone wouldn't mind just making sure that you're on mute, that would be great. I make that mistake all the time, so it's not an issue, but appreciate it in advance. We'll finish off with meeting cohort 1, and many of you have submitted slides and are ready to kind of meet other team members, have people join your team, write proposals with each other, and we've seen that already come through a lot. So it's really exciting, and we'll make sure that that's the meat of the presentation in the second half. Finally, we'll also open up the gather space again, and we'll talk about that later. Cool. So I'll turn it over to Dylan and welcome Room 40 Ventures for the next 30 minutes or so.
Perfect. Thanks, Will, for the introduction. We're joined here by Room 40. As Will mentioned, Room 40 is a crypto-focused investment firm. They partner with founders across a number of different verticals. They'll present a few slides, and then we'll have a little round of Q&A. Alejandra, Mike, thank you so much for joining. I'll turn it over to you. Let's make sure they're unmuted, though.
Awesome. I just unmuted myself, so
awesome.
It works. Thanks for having us, everyone. Maybe we can start with dig right in and go into the next slide. Just to reintro ourselves. So we're Room 40, we're a crypto-focused fund. A lot of the way that we're built is meant to help builders, like a lot of you on this call, to navigate from what it is to start a startup to taking it to a public market in the form of equity or tokens, if that's where you end up. So we have a couple of strategies to do that. We have an early stage venture fund, and we also have a multi-strategy market fund. Within the early stage venture fund, we have 3 core areas that we're currently focused on. One of them is DeFi and FinTech. Another one is infrastructure. And then the last one is Web3 commerce. And a lot of those interest areas are based on the experience that our team has. So we've worked in companies, initially equity-based, taking it from pre-idea to what would have been an IPO, now also with tokens, taking it to what we call an IXO, ICO, ITO, whatever you want to call it, and have gone through the scars of what it's like to really get there. So some of the companies that we've listed on this slide are companies that we've collaborated with in the past or currently. You'll see some Web2 companies that we worked with, and it's interesting because at the moment where a lot of these startups were beginning, they were really dealing with TradFi incumbents and trying to figure out what was going to be their edge to enter those markets. And we believe at the time it was really thinking about those opportunities with internet and mobile and transactions starting to happen a lot more online. And right now we feel like we're in a similar inflection point in crypto where the technology is there, and we're really looking for a lot of these applications and businesses that are going to be targeting these large addressable markets. And the ideas are just really beginning on what that future is going to look like. If we can go to the next slide. So every startup journey is different, but when we think about what a venture scale startup journey looks like, it is thinking about what that large outcome is going to be and what the journey you're going to take to get there. And every startup journey is different, whether you're targeting a B2B startup target market, whether it's B2C, you're in finance, you're in consumer. Crypto brings its own level of complexity to all of that. But as you scale that mountain and get to what that large outcome is, every path is different, but you need to find what's the right path for you. What is the most efficient way for you to get to that large outcome? And whatever path you choose, it's going to really be based on what is your unique strength and the unique strength that your team will bring to the table. And ideally, you find a path that is hard for someone else to replicate along the way. Of course, it's very difficult to get there. And a part of it is making sure you don't die along the way, de-risking as you move up that mountain, getting close to the edge sometimes, so making sure you're not too close where you risk betting the farm or the full company in the process. And one key piece in making sure that one gets to the top is finding who those believers are for you, requiring a team that's aligned on that vision, and it's going to go to that struggle with you to get to the top. And so part of that is finding your builders, and part of that is finding your investors as well. We can go to the next slide. So where does it really start? Like, it really starts with an idea and an insight. And I'll start with a point on going beyond the white space, because if one starts looking to just for white spaces, there's a high chance that somebody else has tried it before. And so what is the insight that you've earned based on your experience or based on an observation that you had in like your own previous path that is going to make it unique to you and position you as the best person to build on that insight? So that's what we call unearned insight. And then the second piece is non-consensus. Like, why has this idea not really been tried in the past? Was it just it hadn't been discovered before, or there's some particular complexities in the market out there that make this a challenge to build, a challenge that you are positioned for now because it's the right time and because it's the right people to build this. And so that's what we think about the inflection point when it comes to technology and adoption. The why now is really important when trying to pitch your insight to investors. And so we've worked with a company called SecTri before, and their insight at the time, it was two founders who had gone through the process of exiting a startup that they'd been involved in very early on. By the time that startup had grown, and they realized that in order to exercise their options, there was potentially like a multi-million-dollar tax bill that they would have had to pay to keep that right. How does one get loans to make sure that you can foot that tax bill when you don't really have the money from those stock options yet? And so they went through that process, discovered it was going to be that it was very difficult to get those loans. And so their non-consensus piece was, if we match the right options and employees to the right capital providers, there's a good profitable opportunity where this can be a win-win for both. And that they only earned that insight because of their lived experience through this. And so that's how they started. And then they went on to productize it. So a product will validate your insight. You'll see that you'll start getting your first customers or people who are interested in your product. And one can't really do everything. The insight might lead to many different opportunities and paths that you could take. But what are those important things that you need to make sure that you get right, and use feedback from the market along the way to continue to validate this? If we think about Vitalik and wanting to build programmable smart contracts on Bitcoin, he had just ended up building a general purpose smart contract platform and had a lot of organic experimentation as he did it. But what was really important, especially for something like Ethereum, is that you have to perfect a few things very early on. And it might not be perfect overall, but making sure that you get those things right, because it kind of has to be right forever, or it's very difficult to move, is very important at this stage. And then lastly, we get to growth. Growth is really important to think about. What is the right go-to-market strategy to really pour the fuel into the fire at this stage, making sure that you have a positive LTV, sustainable economics, and that your product expansion really reflects where your customers are going and what they need at the time. Uber was maniacal at the time about how they scaled market by market, making sure that the LTV was increasing for drivers and users. And that's very difficult to do without a product that has an insane pull like Uber did at the time. So making sure that you're already at that moment before pulling the fuel into the fire is something that's going to be important too, as you get to that inflection point too. I'll say the last thing about this slide is these are such different stages of a business, but it's important when you're initially presenting to investors to really pull it back, show that there's a path for you to productize your insights and eventually get to that different growth stage. And at this point, we're talking about the future, right? Your insight will lead to a different future than what we're living in right now, but pulling that into the present and giving a clear path as to how you're going to get there is going to help take your investor along the journey, because your investor will likely not have that same earned insight as you did. That's why it's yours, and that's why it's unique to you and your experience.
Yeah, I'll jump in here and say something with this slide. I think so. Some of the observations we've made about key breakthroughs for startups in crypto specifically are that those are roughly equivalent at the earliest stages. As we think about insight, it's roughly similar, but I think we start to see some interesting emergent properties as the focus turns to product and growth. And in the product phase in particular, there are a few levers that we can pull, decide to pull, not to pull, depending on the state of the market and where the product is headed. And so decentralization is one of those levers. It's worth mentioning, not only because it's the central tenet of crypto and what we're trying to accomplish here, but also because there's, we think, a difference between engaging the community, having good hygiene with entity setup, and so on, versus in the very earliest stages handing over the reins to the public. And so I think, here a best case outcome, a great outcome for the project for founders is that you manage to find extraordinarily aligned stakeholders.
Is that just me, or did we lose him?
Same, I also lost the voice. Yeah.
We're all still here, which would suggest that
All right,
the
let me
speaker has dropped off.
I can continue while we get Mike back. Let me just.
No worries, no rush.
All right. I'm just calling him. Okay. Awesome. He is hopefully running my way, but in the meantime, let's continue. Let's continue. So so as we go on to thinking about product in crypto, I'll go on with the open source and the forking risk. It's really about what is your team building very early on, given we are very likely to open source the code, and that's very different than how we operated in previous markets, right? A lot of the code is the part of the secret that a lot of these companies build. I would say we're still uncovering some of the secrets of many startups from 10 years ago, and they've become quite public media stories. And so that's something that we don't really do in crypto, and it's very transparent. So how are you earning your users and really building that loyalty early on in your product cycle to make sure that once that code is open, that people are going to continue wanting to build on your product. And that leads a little bit to what we would be doing in the growth stage when we are talking about platforms. And we've had platforms are not new here, but we've had developers building on these larger ecosystems. We can think about Apple as an example, or Microsoft, et cetera. And platform strategies became a large anchor for growth and a large moat for businesses. And so how does that translate into crypto, and making sure that that as we think about open sourcing our code, people come to us and build on top of us.
Apologies, having some technical issues with my computer. Where did we leave off? We're just.
I just covered open source code.
Yeah. So I think the last point here on the product side is really just understanding which pieces of the project and the application deserve to be sort of immutable. And I think we've seen since 2020 sort of a wide or drastic swing from completely immutable protocols to completely iterable applications, and that has brought with it its own share of issues in terms of exploits and all that. So I think having some clarity of thought around which parts of the protocol need to be immutable and iterable is quite important. And then next, moving on to the growth stage, here's I think where there was a lot of attention and thought in 2021 with respect to the way you can design tokenomic structures to add fuel to the fire, to incentivize the right key players in the right ways. And here, I think there's a ton of blank space in the way that you can work on sort of using a data-driven or empirical approach, creating a process, a methodology to sort of design the right program with the right amount of incentives here across the application. And that probably has huge dividends in terms of the amount of growth you can really stimulate in the ecosystem. And that's
this meeting is being recorded.
And that's sort of what a lot of, I think, builders or applications kind of missed among all the things that they did so well in 21. And that's going to be a sort of a central theme in the next bull market, which is coming soon, I think. So that and partnerships where you're looking for and finding the right partners in the space, other DAOs, other application, other builders who are going to continue to be closely aligned and are interested in the growth of your application. And so that in combination with tokenomics, a lot of interesting ways to sort of accelerate growth in crypto. And then the last thing I'll say here before we move on is just the idea of adding value in terms of having what we've seen historically, which is token-based projects that are in some way decentralized, and then having some sort of equity or company piece that's separate from that. Perhaps it's a company that's contributing to the project, building out components, and using that and leveraging that off-chain element to create tools in the ecosystem where they're needed, to create to be the first user in the protocol, to do things where you have a protocol that's open and completely composable, but you also have that sort of first player who's driving growth and traction. And so these are kind of all the things that you can do, I think, at the growth stage to accelerate and add fuel to the fire. That's kind of specific to crypto. Next slide. And then I think we're also quite interested in thinking about internally the various ways that zero knowledge as a technology creates unique opportunities in crypto in terms of creating interesting new products, interesting new dynamics that we can create sort of models for and capture those opportunities. And so one of those is expanding, obviously, the application design space. And Mina is, one of the reasons we're so excited about Mina is that they're sort of quite interested in expanding that design space instead of focusing just on scalability. And one of those specific use cases is connecting a diverse, potentially adversarial group of participants in a single application or protocol using ZK to sort of keep people honest, to verify, compute, do all that. And I think one of the ways that can be expressed is in the next point, sort of in the context of incentivizing stakeholders.
That's me. Thank you. Have a good one.
In terms of who is in the ecosystem, who is a stakeholder, who is bringing something that's private or proprietary to the table, and identifying who is doing that early on and creating incentive structures to accelerate that, I think is quite interesting for ZK apps in particular. And so an example of that would be like, say you're a streaming business, say you're Netflix, and you have this huge earned sort of built database of user activity and preferences and all that is, mission critical. That's your business. And until now, it was quite difficult to imagine how that database would be, how you would provision access to that database and create sort of structures where partners could interface with Netflix and use that data to fuel their own business and provide sort of create more value for Netflix. And so that's just one of the ways we're thinking about who is going to be, who are the users of your applications. And then moving on, I think another huge critical piece is all the various primitives that are going to exist on a ZK on ZK rollups, on ZK L1s like Mina, and those primitives, decentralized identity, oracles, bridges, those are all things where we feel very strongly that there are many ways to implement that with trade-offs in terms of how much security you have and what kind of trust assumptions you're bringing into the system, and making sure that if you're building an application that leverages these, that you are sort of agnostic and open to the idea of different ways of building those. Or if you're building these primitives, that's one of our investment focuses on the venture side is looking at infrastructure. So we're very excited to see sort of a diaspora, sort of a breadth of approach here for these primitives, and I think very, very interesting focus for applications if you're building those. And then the last thing I'll say here is sort of the opportunity to interface with other chains, because there's quite a large need for off-chain compute, for compute that's less restricted than in a virtual machine like EVM, and the ability for Mina or similar chains to sort of going back to the bridge example, to use bridges to allow other chains to leverage the diverse application design space of Mina is quite powerful, and it's probably worth, in our experience, keeping tabs on and sort of understanding what's happening in other chains. We found that that's pretty helpful for founders and builders to understand what's happening elsewhere, and then to borrow ideas and then create sort of draw inspiration from things that are happening elsewhere to create new integrations.
I'll keep this one quick so that we can get to the Q&A. But I mean, if we look at the possibilities of having a venture outcome or a venture a venture exit, the numbers are really stacked against all of us, right? So what do we do as builders and as investors to kind of de-risk that in the early stages and make sure that we're focusing on the right team? So there's a list of 5 things that we generally look at as investors as we try to digest that insight that a team brings into the table. It's first of all, the team is the most important thing, especially at the earliest of stages, which is where we usually invest. So is there a founder market fit? And that goes back to that same idea that I'm sounding like a little bit of a broken record on, but it's really important. It's like, are you the right person for this idea? So that you have that edge throughout that as you scale up the mountain. The second piece is the markets, the why now. Why now? Is it the right time to like transform the particular market that you're looking into? The third part is the product, and how you're productizing that insight and how that's going to transform the market. The model that you're working in, is it going to scale over time? And lastly, the hygiene piece is important. Like, how are you gonna set up, especially in crypto, this gets particularly complex, and how you set up early and how do you set yourself up to bring in the right type of support from other vendors as well, as you scale the business, given it's unfamiliar territory for a lot of the traditional vendors as well. So with that, I think we're ready for Q&A, Dylan, if you are.
Awesome. Alejandro, Mike, this was incredible. Honestly, so one of the first points that you made, which I loved, was about how the path is different for every company. It really is true. There's no one way to success, and figuring out the right path for you is important and something that everyone on this call should be aware of. So to start, there are a lot of VCs out there. How can entrepreneurs pick the best VC for them? And feel free to state what makes Room 40 stand out as well.
I would say that there are 2 things. One is more general, and the second one's a little bit more specific. The first one is, what stage are you at? I think particularly amongst this audience will be quite early. And so making sure that there's a match between what you're building and where you're at with what the investors is looking for is probably going to be important. Like an investor that's going to be looking for at least $5 million of traction and won't invest anything less than like a $10 million check is probably not going to be worth spending lots of time with at this stage. And so I would say that would be kind of a little bit of a waste of time. Good to build connections early as well, but not spend too much time on those investors that's not going to match, whose thesis doesn't match where you're at. And then the second part is, as you consider who you're bringing onto the table, particularly at the beginning, you want to make sure that you have a diversified set of investors. So someone that has the experience in the industry that you're going to be working in, someone that might have the right connections and partnerships to help you get there. And so that's a lot of what we think about at Room 40 is, well, we focus in 3 investment areas: DeFi and FinTech, Web3 commerce, and infrastructure, because we have experience in the space, because our team ourselves, we're sometimes clients or counterparties to a lot of the vendors that you will be likely interacting with too. So making sure that you have someone who is going to fulfill that role in your cap table is very important. And then once you have that, diversify from there and making sure that the other pieces that are going to be critical to what you're building get rounded out in your cap table.
Awesome. Perfect. I think it'd be great if you can give an overview of how the funding process typically works for pre-seed, early seed companies. Where do projects even start? And we actually just got a little question from the audience that I think could be useful in this particular concept of, but how should you even go about deciding when they're ready to go for funding?
It's going to be different for everyone, which is I know not the answer that like generally one wants to hear, but I would say until you have an insight and a general idea on how you want to productize it, it's probably a little bit too early to expect the conversation to go much further than like an introduction and like possibly some brainstorming chats. I think when you actually want to start injecting some capital in the business, having at least that path as to how you're going to bring that vision into the present and how you might possibly get there, knowing that that will likely change a little bit, is something that all investors are likely going to want to see. So I would say having that story, potentially having a deck and a data room that's going to back why this idea is investable, why this idea will get to a large market, large revenues, and a large outcome in the future is something that would be important to have, so that you make sure that you're prepared. You only have a chance to get that first impression call once. So making sure that you have some clarity as to what your edge is going to be important to show off from the very beginning.
Perfect. What are some of the biggest challenges you've seen for early stage companies? What should everyone be prepared for? I know it varies case by case, but I'm wondering if there's something that you kind of see quite a bit with some of these early stage founders.
Yeah, I think moving on from the insight too quickly can be one of the most fatal challenges, probably. Especially in a world where capital is available. Sometimes it's easy to just like start building and forget a little bit to stay in touch with market feedback and what your edge is, and like why this insight is particularly important. Becomes hard because you have the capital to get from, like, let's say, to 1 million or 10 million in revenue. But unless you spent enough time working on that insight and making sure that you have the proper feedback from the market to add that fuel, there might be a stalling point that might catch a team by surprise. And so yeah, I would say the biggest challenge sometimes can be is just staying true to the core of where this idea even came from. Yeah,
I'd echo that statement. I think it's important, especially as you're thinking through your process, to really be focused. So kind of my last question here, you touched on it on your second to last slide, but would love to double click. What makes zero knowledge such an interesting area for VCs like Room 40? It's obviously a super hot narrative now, which, you know, us at Mina are very excited about. But what kind of potential use cases are you particularly excited about being built?
I think we want to do as the least amount of prognosticating here in terms of what that looks like, because we want builders to sort of come up with their own ideas here. But in general, I think we're quite excited about the fundamental aspect, which we consider to be creating ways to have more off-chain compute. And I think the trend up until now has been sort of the instinct or the impulse to put all transactions on chain. And I think that's has not been great for user experience. And I think it's also been quite restrictive in terms of enterprises and larger institutions and organizations that want to go on chain or interact with blockchains. And I think part of the appeal for ZK for us in particular is the ability to create third-party compute mechanisms that are that require less of a trusted third party, that are more trustless than what we already have in traditional tech, which is you offload a bunch of compute to huge data farms, data centers, and then you call it a day. And I think that power to sort of connect off-chain aspects with on-chain is quite interesting to us. And I think that extends to the idea that there are a ton of applications, I think, that are out there that stand to benefit from being on-chain, which is namely the composability and the credible neutrality of blockchain and all that, and different ways, different mixes in terms of how much of the app should be on-chain, how much should be off-chain, is going to be quite exciting in terms of design space. And then the last thing I'll say there is that we're also quite excited about different ways that I think I was cut off when I was speaking about this, or maybe I wasn't, to create value channels for folks who have sort of an interest in keeping data or proprietary data or private data, and the ability to use that meaningfully using ZK, using the privacy aspect of ZK to interact with other folks that they might not have in the past. And so any sort of application where privacy is a central concern, quite interesting to us. I think the commonly cited example is like healthcare, financial applications where you don't want other people to know what you're doing, things like that, where I think there's an extension or expansion of design space that's quite interesting.
Perfect. Adding a little Mina shill here, we are really good at off-chain compute. So I think the most exciting thing for me is really, not just the traditional things that everyone in kind of ZK are thinking about, but things that we have never even thought about. And we're excited to see what all y'all are making and what you're going to build. So let's close this out. Alejandra, Mike, thank you so much. Feel free to give your shill. How can projects reach out to you to learn a little bit more about Room 40?
Yeah, we are happy to share our emails in the chat, just so we're not dictating them letter by letter here. But I think email would likely be the best way to stay in touch throughout the process. We know there's a lot of bouncing around ideas, and we'll be very close touch with the Mina team throughout ZK Ignite as well. So we'll share our emails, and feel free to reach out at any point.
Perfect. Thank you again so much. This was really, honestly, super incredible. So really appreciate you taking the time and presenting and answering a bunch of questions.
Thanks for having us, Dylan.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Yeah, thank you again, Alejandro and Mike. That was really helpful, and we appreciate the time. And so moving on, we've got, and thanks Dylan as well. We've got some just quick updates and some clarifications, as well as just wanted to kind of like provide a check-in and the overall journey of where we're at. And then we're going to spend the majority of our time left just to turn the mic over to you all, and to make sure that this time is valuable to introduce each other, talk about what we're working on, talk about what we may be looking for in terms of teammates or partners. And if we have time at the end, then we'll also open up the space and gather town for people to go and actually meet each other in a more one-on-one setting. And I know that there's a couple questions that we didn't get to in the chat there as well, so we can take those questions to Q&A together afterwards. So I think there's some interesting points around the context of like open source and how do you kind of still build a moat. And then also there's a very long ongoing chat in the Discord around the importance of the ZK agenda in regulatory bodies and like institutions, and what kind of comes first in terms of making privacy a conversation. Okay. Week 3 updates. Again, we are week 3 out of 12. We're making some good progress here. You can see on the screen, we've got over 400 registered users on the ZK Ignite platform, which is amazing. So far, we opened up proposals last week. So far, we have 40 of them, 30 for the ZK app track and 10 for the dev track. And we have until March 5th to submit the draft proposals. We'll talk about a little bit about that in a second. And then we have over 140 insights and over 150 comments on those insights. So lots of really in-depth discussion going on where people are validating their ideas, discussing, commenting, providing feedback, and it's all been happening on the platform. So I just want to give a shout out to everybody here for making the time, not only for just contributing content, but also for leaving feedback and discussing. And you guys are going to get annoyed at me for continuing to use the Cambrian explosion metaphor, but like, this is what it takes. This is what it takes to kind of like not only come up with ideas in a vacuum, but also put them out into the world, get feedback on them, taking time to give feedback on others. And we want to continue to see that. On the proposals themselves, you'll be able to see that there's like a discussion tab. If you click on that discussion tab, there's people who are leaving comments, and when electors are reviewing the proposals and deciding where they want to allocate, they'll also be looking at the discussions, and they'll be looking at some of the questions that people have posed, and then also how the proposers have responded to those questions. And so as a proposer, it's also a reminder to make sure that you're keeping an eye on and giving feedback that when people are commenting. And again, like it's been awesome to see thus far, because it's really been constructive and it's really been kind of uplifting. And so we want to keep that energy going. I'll also just share a quick update that we've now we're onboarding 30 electors. We had reached out to a bunch of different people who met the criteria for becoming elector first. Those people then indicated interest that they were interested, and then we did a lottery to get down to the final 15. There's 15 per track, so there's 15 for ZK app track, and there's 15 for dev. And in their allocation decisions, when the funding process kicks off, they'll be kind of putting on the hat of either a ZK app end user or a developer within the ecosystem. Many of, most of the dev electors are developers themselves. Actually, all of them are. And so the kind of idea here is that there's different representation of participants in the Mina ecosystem who are actually choosing directly what they would like to see built as kind of stakeholders. And so we're quite excited, and we're continuing to kind of make steps in this experiment that is ZK Ignite. I also wanted to clarify, I'm just going to clarify a few things before we get to the kind of meet and greet slides. Is just to reiterate, proposals versus insights. You'll see two of them on the platform. You'll see two different sections. Proposals now are in the phase of, okay, this is what actually will get judged. And so if you want to participate in actually you're requesting funding, make sure that you're filling out the template that is in the proposals tab. If you're still discussing insights, that's great. But the only thing that is actually going to be eligible to receive funding is if it's submitted under the proposals tab. I know that might sound obvious, but I just want to really make sure that we're clear about that. Insights is again for validating and for discussing and for sharing articles, sharing resources. And we've decided that we're going to keep the insights tab open the whole length of ZK Ignite, because we originally kind of moved from insights to proposals. We got some feedback that people still wanted to share and discuss. And not everyone was necessarily interested in submitting a proposal, but they still wanted to participate in terms of sharing information and ideas. And so we've kept the insights button open. You can go there and you can read other people's. You can filter and sort and like. So just a heads up, if you're leaving an insight but you mean to leave a proposal, make sure to go to the proposal section and do it there. Okay. I think one other thing we just wanted to clarify, and this is about how we're choosing your track. Again, we have like the dev for dev track, and we have the ZK app track. And at its core, the ZK app track should be smart contracts that are written in Snarky.js. Mina's programming language is just written in TypeScript. The architecture of a ZK app is a UI and a smart contract, so it's a little bit more complex than that. But if you're not touching Snarky.js in any way and you're not writing smart contracts, then it's more likely that your project belongs in the dev for dev track. I had shared originally thinking about who your end user is, but I want to just also clarify here that it's going to be a requirement that to be in the dev for dev track, there has to be a Snarky.js component of your ZK app. And again, the smart key, the smart contract written in Snarky.js kind of compiles into a prover and a verifier function. So again, if these are foreign words to you and you're participating in the ZK app track, then you should kind of reconsider it. If you have questions around, that still does not I think solve everybody's questions, because there will be developer tooling that involves smart contracts written in Snarky.js, but their end user is still to improve the developer ecosystem if you want to discuss it, the best way to do it is to kind of get feedback from people in the Discord channel. Again, as we onboard electors this week, they will also be in the Discord. And as this is an experiment, we're doing it for the first time, there's lots of learnings to be had. So the Mina Foundation team as well will be part of that discussion, and we'll figure it out as we go. I also wanted to just share, bring back up some dev for dev ideas. You can see here on the left, these are just some categories. This is also written in the track description. But then on the right-hand side, some folks from Of1 Labs, team that incubated Mina Protocol, and some others got together and generated some ideas specifically when it came to libraries. And so, again, this is not all the libraries that need to be built. There are many more than this, and there's many more ideas that we haven't thought of yet. But these slides will be shared afterwards, and if one of these kind of jumps off the page to you, feel free to go for it, or start doing some more research on what that might entail if you're interested in potentially writing this as a proposal. Revisiting the key dates. So Sunday, March 5th at 11:59 PST, Pacific Standard Time, is when the draft proposal deadline is. You will not be able to add any new proposals after this date. I'll repeat that again, no new proposals on the platform will be able to be added after this date. And so it does not mean that these proposals have to be final. We're actually expecting you to continue to work on them. But the reason that we have kind of a draft date and then a final date is, again, feedback is such an important part of this process. And so in an ideal world, every proposal will have feedback on it, and you'll have a chance to revise that proposal if you choose, based on the feedback that you've received. And so we've kind of inserted this initial date as a mechanism to encourage that dynamic. March 21st will be the revision deadline. So that will when all proposals will be marked final on the platform, and then we'll move directly into the funding stage, where the electors will be doing multiple rounds of voting. And that's the process of how the funds will be allocated. We'll get into much more detail when that time comes around how actually the mechanics of that works. But again, the important thing to think about is March 5th, which is only a few days from now. And if you're considering submitting a proposal at all, it's better to consider to start with the draft and continue to work on it versus missing the deadline. Also, if you're not quite there, another thing to just remember is this is cohort 1, there will be a cohort 2, there will be a cohort 3, and we'll continue to improve and learn on, from each of these processes on what's working and what's not. But the main thing is that ZK Ignite is a multiple cohort journey that each step of the way, we're kind of building different layers and foundations in the ecosystem. And so if you're kind of still noodling on an idea and it doesn't quite feel right for cohort 1, there will be opportunities in the future as well. I'm just going to flash these slides again. If you have any questions around the program, or what the deadlines are, or anything to do with the platform, or you're thinking about choosing a track, or you potentially want to just reshare your proposal and get some feedback on it, ZK Ignite Cohort 1 on Discord is the place to go. If you have technical questions and you're building and you get stuck and you'd like some support from other builders, or potentially from someone on the DevRel team at Mina Foundation, you can go to the ZK Apps questions forum and search to see if that question has been answered, or you can kind of create your own. And then we have technical office hours twice a day, every Wednesday, in 2 different time zones. So you can also make time to do that. One of them is just before this call, or normally just before this call. So and it happens directly on Discord. And then finally, we have a new channel called ZK Ignite Connections, which many of you have already made good use of, and that is specifically to meet other people, share your project, and look for other team members. And so after this call, if you see someone who's presented a slide and you think we could work really well together, you can either reach out to them directly as a DM, or you can kind of get together on that channel. And again, we're going to be opening up Gather Town to make that work too. Next week, we're going to actually have Gregor and Florian, 2 engineers and Mina community members who are with Of1 Labs, Mina's ecosystem partner, and they are going to take us through a real example of a real ZK app and their architecture decisions. and how to make the most out of Snarky.js and zero knowledge proofs within Mina. So we're going to do probably a 45-minute talk that will get into the weeds on actual architecture next week, and then we'll be following by a pretty lengthy Q&A. So if you're thinking about your architecture and you're thinking about revising it, this is a good time to come and take notes and pay close attention. Cool. Okay, so we're going to connect. We had asked last week if you'd like to create a slide, and we've brought those slides over here. We're just going to go down the list. And so if you're here and you would like to kind of talk in addition, please come off mute. If maybe we weren't able to make this call, we can just flash the slide and everyone can read it for a second. Or if you're not comfortable speaking, that's okay too. You can just kind of say hello in the chat. But we will ask people to come off mute. If you didn't get a chance to create a slide, but you're still interested in meeting the, telling everyone a little bit about who you are and what you're working on, that's cool too. We'll see how much time we have at the end, but feel free to just like put up your hand in the chat and we'll get to it at the end. And again, we'll save a bit of Q&A where the different Mina Foundation team members are going to go into GatherTown at the end, and we'll all be sitting at different tables. So we'll have more chance to do Q&A, but we figured the best opportunity now is to give everybody the chance to kind of introduce themselves, talk about what you're working on, talk about what you're interested in. And make the most of this cohort. Oh, sorry, one last thing. You'll also be able to, if you go into proposals, you'll see team proposers, people who have suggested the proposal. Some of them are open. Many people are open for people to join their team. There's a little box on the right side of the proposal that says open for team application. And it's just a text box that you can then enter some of your information, maybe some links. We left it free form for a reason, to get in touch with that team directly. So if you're also reading proposals and giving feedback and potentially thinking about where you want to contribute, this is another signal that you can keep an eye on for on the platform and potentially get involved that way. Okay. Great. I'll just start. I'll kick us off here. This is me on Discord. We'll see. My role at Mina is community programs, which is, and I'll be also project managing ZK Ignite. I got involved with, I guess, Mina and the blockchain space in general. So I'm just really interested in figuring out like new ways to coordinate super large groups of people all around the world working towards the same goal. That might be a little wordy, but doing things like this and figuring out how to kind of, how many different languages, how many different cultures, how many different religions, how many different people do we have on this call from all over the world who are all working to kind of build out the Mina ecosystem. I think it's really novel. It's really exciting, and it gets me out of bed in the morning. I used to work in a big global music community at a startup called So Far Sounds. And it was also kind of it was not involved with crypto, but it was a very kind of community-based model. And again, with people kind of hosting intimate concerts all around the world. I also spend a lot of my free time DJing, and I've do some radio stuff. Yeah, hit me up on Discord if you want to chat, if you want to share music or anything. That's kind of my biggest side hobby at the moment. I don't know if we have a music channel on the Discord, but yeah, just send me a DM. And really looking forward to meeting everybody. I'll pass it over to Flush the Fashion, aka Pete.
Thanks, Phil. Hi there. Hi everyone. My name's Pete. If we haven't met before,
Oh, I think Pete, we're losing you a little bit.
can you hear me?
Barely. Maybe if you try again.
Oh, can you hear me now?
A little. Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay, what I'll do is I will put some notes in the chat.
Okay, cool.
Maybe that.
I can also give you a shout out, Pete. Pete runs minacrypto.com and also the website ZK Apps for Mina, which is the most robust database of completed and in progress ZK apps. So I would encourage everybody who's looking for inspiration to go to that website. when I joined the Mina community, Pete showed me a lot of the ropes in terms of how to connect with the community and from a value standpoint, how to what really Mina stood for. So shout out to Pete. And maybe Pete, if you don't mind putting that in the chat, that'd be great. And this is a super cool slide as well. Cool. I'll pass it over to Boston Mike. Are you there? I can also do Boston Mike, who is an original member of the OG mod squad since mainnet launch. Mike is also one of the moderators in Mina's Discord, and you see him frequently in the ZK Ignite channel. You see his Discord there, but again, just a core community member from the very, very beginning. Genesis founding member who brings a lot of value to the Mina community, and we're super grateful to have him here. And you'll see him answering lots of questions around the program in Discord as well. So shout out to Sheriff Boston Mike. Okay, I'll pass it over to, is Mark on?
Yeah, I'm on.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Will. Hey, I'm Mark. I'm a moderator for Mina community. I've been in the Discord since February 2021, but I've been an official moderator since last December. I'm Dutch, 38, married, 2 kids. I'm not technical, so it's very hard for me to understand a lot of things you guys are saying. I'm not going to learn scripting, CK, etc. But my goal is to onboard and interest people in Mina and share knowledge, help, and answer questions. That's it.
Awesome. Welcome and thank you as well for making it happen. Cool. Next we have Cold Star.
Hello, could you hear from me?
Hey. Yes.
Hello. My English is not really good, but I will try to express myself clearly. And firstly, my name is Cold Star, and I'm a full stack engineer of 6 years experience in Web3, focusing on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and currently on Mina ecology. And I make a translation of the Starship book in Chinese, which is Light Hardhead. And this is my teammate Condex. We joined Mina community very earlier when it is called Coda, and we actively join the community activities. For example, the Izake apps bootcamp, and we too are members of the Izake app builders program called One, and we are also active grantee. And during Izake Ignite called One, we raised 2 insights. One is about low up Izake low up layer 2, focusing on privacy and scalability, which is former shadow in Izake app builders program called One, and it goes up along with the upgrade of Snarky library, because when Snarky library is of lower version, there are many features of shadow we cannot support. It cannot support. So along with the upgrade of Snarky, shadow grows out to be ZK low up layer 2 for Mina. And this is and during our development of Anonymous network, then we quickly meet the off-chain storage issue. So we think of a method to improve this problem. So we think this is a common issue when everybody develop exactly apps to serve numbers of people. So we try to separate the storage layer to be a common storage component to make it into a service for most exactly apps. Yes, and we will raise 2 proposals for these insights. And at last, this is our project, the website of our project, Onomics Network, and this is the Twitter. And the coding job is on progress, and stay tuned. That's all. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very, very much for staying up late and taking the time. And it's cool to see how, again, different already different proposals are causing different needs in terms of that infrastructure for the ecosystem. So yeah, thank you, Cold Star. Thank you, Comdex. And yeah, appreciate your time. Okay, I'll pass it over to Chiro.
Okay. Hi, I'm Chiro from Origin Network. We are an R&D lab. We focus on applying GKP to provide the verifiable computation. Actually, we build some like cool stuff like ECVRF and do research about the MPC. So we bring the concept of ZK database to the ZK Ignite. We allow people to store the data on the distributed storage, and also establish the ability to prove the data processing and the lookup process. Besides that, in the last year, we established a GKP lab in Vietnam that focus on growing the R&D community in GKP. And yeah, really love to hear your feedback on our draft proposal. Yeah, that's all.
Great. Thank you very much. And now I'm noting it was 2 a.m. Now it's 3 a.m. So yeah, thanks again. And nice to meet you, Chiro. Okay. Next, Havriliak, if I said that right.
Yeah, a couple of words about myself. My background, I'm originally from Ukraine, but visited over 57 countries, living there in 15 of them over the 3 months. Currently, I'm living in London. Previously, used to be head of ecosystem growth in DAP protocol. And I was responsible for dev onboarding, launching internal incubation, acceleration program, and so on. Also, I was a co-founder of AI startup, which I exited 2 years ago. And right now, I just recently finished Entrepreneur First program and also Cambridge Acceleration program, because I was exploring space and trying to chill a little bit from Web3 space and trying to switch and see what is going on around. And right now why I'm here, because I'm exploring what is Mina, how it works, what is interesting in ecosystem. Also, I would love to contribute and iterate the idea of talent. Like basically, I have the idea of a ZK-based job board where recruiters and tech talents are meeting and uncovering the data only after some steps when done. Also, just I want to deliver some interesting product for people, get some grant support from Mina, hopefully, and enjoy the process, by the way. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's probably not workable from here, but Twitter, definitely, Nick Havriliak. I would love to have you there. Also, I start talking with a couple of guys. Full Stack and Solidity are welcome because I'm not technical. I used to lead developers as a product manager, project manager in my past, but definitely I need a CTO, co-founder who will help me to deliver this idea to the market. That's it.
Nice. Welcome and thank you. I also spend a lot of time in London as well, so maybe we can connect there offline.
Sure.
But yeah, welcome. Okay, Marco. Is Marco there? No worries. If not, I love the full stack dev. You can tell from the slide design. Currently building a DLT based GDPR and PSD2 compliant banking software, and exploring if Mina, if or how Mina can be the foundational chain for it. Very nice. Hopefully so. Welcome, Marco. Okay, Femi. Okay. If Femi's not here, you can read it there. Looking to join a team, helps in community management and partnership. Community moderator X2Y2. And they have their contact information there. Okay. Jonas?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks a lot. Yeah, my name's Jonas. Nice to meet you all. Someone has to mute something. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, I'm full-time in blockchain since 2 years. I'm certified in Ethereum, Near, and Hyperledger. I have a lot of wild dreams and ideas. I guess that's that gives out a lot of my identity, and I think decentralization first and concern second. I'm looking for people to build with me something where I know there's real demand for it. I've met clients who are asking for this, which is a way for organizations and companies to have their stakeholders participate economically, but without knowing the address, right? So if you do an airdrop, usually the address of the beneficiaries are known. This is a problem which companies often have because their partners, their employees and such, they do not know the address. So I'm trying to solve that. That is something where zero knowledge is needed, and I need some people to do this with me. So I'm looking especially for someone who's experienced in partner management, or could be someone from sales and or consultant, and looking for front end and smart contract devs. And if I may, I would like to share a small a fun fact with you. You know, zero knowledge proofs are from the 1970s. So that's when people first came up with it without ever knowing that there could be something in the universe strong enough to actually compute them. And they were looking at this from a very theoretical standpoint. And Cook in 1971 published a paper where they were wondering, you know, what can we prove with zero knowledge proofs? And already in 1971, they discovered you can prove everything. Any mathematical statement can be proven with a zero knowledge proof. And I think that's very motivating for us. You know, we have a lot of work to do. So thanks.
Fantastic. I feel inspired. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Jonas. Okay, another dev 1180.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, great. So I'm founder of WorkPod, which is supposed to connect independent security auditors in Web3 and projects that are looking for security audits. Currently, I'm located in Poland, and for ZK Ignite, I want to help making this, auditing process easier both for companies and auditors that are coming from different ecosystems. And so I'd love to maybe get in touch with a few people that are also interested in this idea. I have already posted in the Mina Protocol Discord. And yeah, let's make auditing easier and make sure that projects on Mina are secure.
Amazing. Sounds good. And I know some AI art when I see some, and so I have much respect there.
Yeah, me too.
Cool. Okay. We'll keep us going here. Zuza?
Hey, what's up, guys? Good evening. Actually, the Zuzo is actually not my name. I made a mistake. I just updated it on the live slide. The Zuzo is a proposed product name. So basically, trying to build, or with my team, we're trying to build. I don't want to call it a bridge yet, because I think a bridge is pretty much more advanced than what we are trying to build. We are just trying to build a library or an SDK at the moment to enable Solana developers, tap into the whole ZK benefits and features, right? So, but first, just a little bit about myself. I'm a developer engineer, a front-end engineer as well, with 4 years of experience. I'm a digital nomad. I travel a lot and meet different people and work from different parts of the world. And just like I mentioned earlier, our goal is very simple. We just want to, because after doing my research, I figured out that a lot of ZK projects were built on top of Ethereum or layer 1 protocol. So, and I was wondering, there are just a few projects on Solana that implement or integrate ZKPs, right? So I thought of having to work on that with 2 of my friends. One is Chris. I don't know if Chris is on the call right now, but Chris has background in mathematics. He studied mathematics. I studied computer science, and we also have someone else who studied chemical engineering. So we are looking for someone with experience in brand identity / product design. So we just think someone that's going to really represent what we are building in a very visual appealing way. We have the technical guys already, but we're also looking out to welcome more technical guys. So if you're interested in the project, you get Solana SDK as a library before, we also looking forward to meet you or just have a chat, even if you're not interested in joining the team. So we've been having series of conversation with people in the Solana ecosystem. I also write a little bit of Rust program myself, but not like an advanced Solana programmer. I basically do TypeScript and my React frontend. So looking forward to meet you guys. Anyone interested in working on this? I personally, apart from the research I've done around it, I know that there's a lot of demand for this. A lot of people in the Solana ecosystem. We need to find a way to bridge them into the Mina ecosystem and on the ZK world at last. So you can connect with me on Twitter, GDCodes, Discord, GDCodes999 is on the screen. Drop a message on Discord now, just in case you want to connect. So looking forward to connect with you guys. Bye.
Amazing. Thanks. Thanks, Judy. And Chris, if you're on as well. Okay, Mario Zito. I love this slide. Lots of action. I think we met Mario last week. If anybody was on, there was a really cool background, some artwork. I'll just summarize really quick, Mario, if you're not on, but building a product to solve the challenge of verifying the authenticity of credentials in Web3 communities, as described in the proposal, which is linked. With the growing importance of credentials as both a social and professional signal, it's crucial to have a trusted and reliable system for validating claims. And the team is Leandro, Dario, Mario, all Mina Protocol certified devs, including Solidity and extensive front-end and back-end experience, and will kindly welcome marketing and design teammates. Cool. So welcome, Mario. Welcome, Leandro. Welcome, Dario. And again, these slides will be shared afterwards. Okay, Gabrielle? Okay, I'll just summarize quickly. Ac Finance is developing a non-custodial wallet for micro businesses that help them reduce paper waste by receiving e-receipts and e-invoices through WhatsApp message email directly in the wallet. They are looking for teammates to create a cool product with ZK feature and looking for designers. Okay. I am Dev.
They're not presenting well.
Okay, so you can see it here. I think there's a lot of discussion on the keyless wallet. I think they were one of the first people to get their team was a proposal live on the platform. So shout out to them for that. And I also see there's a Sem4 SDK proposal, which was one of the ideas that the team had also generated in some brainstorms. They're here to learn and build ZK apps. I think they also shared that they were looking for teammates in the Discord, if I remember correctly. Okay, Zendarbo.
Hi guys. My name is Zendarbo, Zen for short. Describe myself as full stack engineer. That includes Web3 and crypto for quite some time, as well as I could design circuit boards and CAD design. I often find myself in co-founding CTO position professionally. Tech visionary and visual artist. Here's some of my art over there. I programmed some Pioneer protection mapping stuff and on towards Spango 2.0. Will, maybe you and I have a pair of some visual someday with your DJing. So I've been on an adventure with hackathons. I'm really excited. Participated in Mina ZK Ignite Cohort 0. That was kind of my third on my little adventure. I pulled out a prize every time, and I'm having a lot of fun building community. And I've really landed on a concept now that I'm pushing forward in the form of ZK Humans is the code name for that project. It's an app. That's kind of the commercialized outlet for this expression. And the on the dev for dev track, the tools, ZK Bioauth utilities, the idea is to export as many primitives as possible for others to build on along the way. I might summarize ZK Humans as anonymous biometric memberships. Working with Humanode as a crypto biometric provider. They have ZK under their hood for how they secure the privacy of biometrics. And I participated in their hackathon, came out with first prize. The gist is human collectives. And so there can exist what I call a collective paradigm where a ZK human could be an individual human, verifying their ownership and authenticity by their biometrics, or it could be a whole collective of humans operating as one. And so it's a fun playground in space. Could see it as a platform for KYC providers, age verifications, for those that want strong definitive association with biometrics, maybe financial institutions, health, etc., while protecting that privacy to the utmost. So yeah, here to have fun and really leave a trail of tools and build team and find mentors. I've updated my slide, by the way, but find mentor, yes, and build team. So my proposals are developing. They'll show up soon, and check them out, please. You can check my GitHub for little buzz on the trail I've been leaving in the hackathon scene. So I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. Welcome and welcome back. Cool. Mina.
Hi, I'm Mina.
Hey.
I am Mina Bina on Discord. I'm a product owner, graphic designer, UI UX front end developer, designer, and a technical writer. I'm located in Philly, if anybody's local. And the proposal that I intend to submit is called Badger, which essentially is the future of digital identity. So we'll be using QR code generators to create NFT ID badges that can replace hard token identification with zero knowledge identity verification. So on the far left, you'll see a screenshot of an iOS widget that we intend to create. And this is actually a spinoff of something that I've been using myself personally for the last year or so. I've had like a QR code on my lock screen that enables people, whether you're at a pop-up shop or at a loud party, that you can just quickly share information, whether it takes someone to your website or your link tree, that having that quick access point really into a lot of rooms and started a lot of conversations. And so what I realized was that instead of having like a JPEG image on my lock screen, we could create a widget that was accessible in the Today view on iOS devices or even an Apple Watch lock screen. And then from there, I thought, okay, well, how do we actually make this something that would be universal? And that's when I got introduced to blockchain, Mina in particular, and then of course housing everything. We would be all this would be built on Web3. So some use cases I developed, for instance, if you want to talk zero knowledge, a bartender can verify your age without access to your address. So that's like, a nice element of privacy or safety. So essentially my idea would be that we would create a QR code scanner that would be based on metadata and the different permissions. So for instance, if you are a bartender, or let's say just like a bouncer at a club, you would scan the QR code and all you would have access to is the age verification, nothing more. Similar to some of the other insights I've seen where you can verify credit score, but not necessarily have access to the entire credit history, which eliminates the possibility for discrimination based off of unsavory credit history. And just, just as long as you qualify, you're good. Another use case is international travel without the fear of misplacing expensive or passports or visas. So essentially, if you have a URL and it's universal, you can go up to TSA and be like, hey, I don't have my paperwork, but here's my URL. You can look this up. Here's my face. I can verify any information that you need. They can issue you another code, and then you can have that in order to travel. And that's if you lost your device. And also another thing, if you do lose your electronic devices, your QR code is right there. All of your personal information is there in case you need it to be accessed. So essentially, my idea is that we could eventually, as security bulks up, decentralize the Social Security Administration, which issues digital identities for entities, individuals, and businesses, but also the Department of Defense that issues our regular state IDs and passports as well. So if you're interested in anything that I've mentioned, have any type of ideas or skills that you could contribute to something like this, there's a QR code at the bottom of the screen on the right that takes you right to our Discord.
Fantastic. You're welcome. You get extra points for the name.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, we're going to talk about GatherTown really quickly. I think we're already a bit over time. And so I'm going to pass it over to Janae just to set the stage of Gather and how we're going to use it in the weeks going forward. And I know last week was a bit chaotic. And this is the first time that we're doing it as a big program. So Janae will set the stage. And I also just want to give a shout out to Janae, just for, when you see all the slides and all the content, Janae is the one behind the scenes who's making it happen. Yeah, shout out to you, Janae. I want to pass it over.
Thank you, Will. I feel like a news reporter. It's kind of fun. All right, we can go to the next slide. So let's connect. Today, we're going to be using Gather as a space for our Q&A. So if you have questions after this and you want to kind of dive into those, we're going to pop over to Gather. But it's also going to be a space for you to connect with some of the people that you saw here. So if you're looking for more team members, want feedback on your projects, or just want to hang out and connect with each other, we are all going to go over to Gather. Next slide. So,
oh, sorry, can I just make a comment as well, Janae, that I think it's like, last week we used it as like a workshop, whereas we're going to kind of just use it as like an optional place to be going forward, should you choose, is the other thing.
So yeah, this is more of like a lounge, more of a place for hanging out and getting to know each other, and social. So what you need to know is when you log on, you're going to get to our special home, our special land, you need to use the URL. The URL will be accessible to you in a moment. And then you're going to create a profile, avatar, and you're just going to navigate the space like you would a video game using your right arrow, or your left, like your clicks to your right and your left arrow to move around, or you could click around using your mouse. And then if you want to talk to someone, you just walk right up to them and then you can start a conversation. But if you want to have a more private conversation and not, fill up the room with all of these side combos, definitely go to one of the private areas in a designated space. And I'll show you all those on the next slide. So this is kind of our land of where we'll be hanging out. You see it's labeled the Q&A sections. So that's where we're going to be after the meeting. And those tables are going to be reserved for only a few people at a time. So if that one table's full, bump over to another table and you can just enjoy a conversation over there. But each table is a private area for you to hang out with a group of people. And if you need additional spaces more for being alone or working in like 2 people or more, we're going to bounce over to the next area. And you see additional meeting spaces. So you kind of walk over there using your right arrow. Will, could you go to the next slide, please? And once you get there, you are going to be in our additional working collaboration spaces. Here you can actually kind of own a space. So if you walk over to a room, you can designate how long you want the space, how many people have access to the space, and you can even provide a link to someone who is not on Gather to meet you in that space. So there's the ability to work independently, small rooms and small tables to accommodate 2 to 10 people. And then the large meeting room is 10 or more. Next slide. Yeah. So then, sorry for the noise in the background if you all hear it. Bathroom renovation. So the Gather, we're going to have a co-working this Friday. And what does this mean? It's just going to be, like I said, a space for you all to hang out, get to know each other, and we can all work together. And one of the MF team members will be around to hang out and answer questions. The link is right there, and we are going to establish a time a little bit later, so stay tuned on Discord.
Cool. And I'll just do a quick walkthrough of like exactly what this looks like. It should just be loading up. I have Brave, it doesn't necessarily like Brave. We'll just allow this and just join. Okay, if you guys can see here, like this is just me and Gather and what, whoops, I entered the race car room. There's a place where you can go to compete and actually get the racetrack. So if people want to go and race each other, that's another fun icebreaker. But also, this is what it looks like. If you just want to speak to someone, you can just go up and you can actually just walk right up to them and it'll open up a private little Zoom. Or you can, like Janae was saying, when you go to a private space, you can just go here and have a conversation. So this is your space just as much as it is anyone else's to kind of make your own. And we're going to hop over there right now for anybody who's interested. If someone could just drop the link in both the chat and the Discord. And then also, like on Friday, for most of the day, you can just come here, and we wanted to provide a space where lots of people are connecting on Discord and saying, let's find a time to connect. This is a great opportunity we can, set a time to meet in Gather Town, find a room, and we can provide that space for you. So I'll be here. We'll be at the Q&A for the next couple of minutes, and also just feel free to hang out and do your thing. And maybe we'll race somebody in the racetrack because there's a leaderboard and it looks fun.
I'm ready to race. Yeah, see you there.
Okay, thanks everyone. I'll be at one of the Q&A tables. Bye.
See you. Bye.